So is Illuga useless outside of Zibai's teams? We're gonna discover that today. First of all, sorry if my voice is kind of weird, I'm very sick. But in this video, we'll just be going through Illuga's kit. We're gonna be seeing his value in Zibai's teams and also outside of Zibai's teams. And we're gonna be seeing whether he's only a niche support for Zibai, or if he can be just a general Geo buffer and support to general Geo characters. Before we continue that though, if you're trying to get Illuga or any of his constellations, I would recommend getting Genesis crystals from LDshop.gg. LDshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, up to 30% cheaper. For example, you can see that 3,280 Genesis crystals offer. It costs $50 on the official game store, but it only costs $37.39 on LDshop. That's $12.61 or more than 25% saved just by using LDshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. When you want to buy, you just want to click on the offer you want to choose. For example, I'm going to buy the 300 Genesis crystals offer. You just need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right. Then you just want to click on top up, choose your payment method, enter your details, and pay. And shortly after that, you're just going to get the Genesis crystals on your account. And right now, if you use my link, you can get a 15% off coupon, also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80 in a month, you can win a free Welkin. Just go check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. Alright, so first of all, for his kit, Illuga is just going to be a Geo polearm user, and he's going to be a buffer slash support, specifically for lunar crystallized characters. Most of his kit is going to be pretty simple. He's just going to scale with elemental mastery. His elemental skill is not really going to do much. It's basically just damage. And then his elemental burst, which is one of the most important things about his kit, is just that when you use it, it's going to give you some stacks. And then every time your teammates hit opponents with Geo damage, whether it's normal attacks or charge attacks or elemental skill burst, whatever, any type of Geo damage, that damage is just going to gain damage bonus from Illuga. That damage bonus is just going to scale off elemental mastery. As we can see, it's going to be also a big difference between his bonus to normal Geo damage and lunar crystallized damage. It's going to be like 7 or 8 times more, so it's a huge difference. That's why a lot of people will say he's more of like a lunar crystallized buffer, and he doesn't really work that well on Geo teams. For his passives, they're also going to be pretty decent. The first passive is basically just going to give your Geo damage 5% crit rate and 10% crit damage, and then also give your party members 50 elemental mastery. So it's just very small buffs, but they're going to be appreciated, so it doesn't hurt at all. Same passive is that for each Hydra or Geo you have on your team, that damage bonus for your lunar crystallized or your Geo damage is going to be increased by a little bit, which is pretty good too. And that's really pretty much it for his skit. For C0 Illuga, that's it. Mainly, he just needs elemental mastery, and then based on that elemental mastery, is going to be buffing the Geo attacks and lunar crystallized attacks of your characters. Also, is one of those characters that I would honestly say is kind of constellation locked. He does get much better with constellations, especially later constellations, unfortunately. C1 is basically just energy, which is cool. C2 is basically just some extra damage from Illuga, which is nice, but it's not really something, you really care about. C3 is just going to increase the level of your elemental burst, which is going to increase your damage bonus, which is super good too. C4 is going to be super good actually. It's going to give defense to your nearby party members. 200 defense is going to be pretty good, especially in a lot of Geo teams and for a lot of Geo DPSs. So it's just going to make him pretty good, and also just as a general support for Geo. And then finally C6, which is the biggest upgrade in my opinion. That crit passive that we talked about before, now it's going to be 10% crit rate and 30% crit damage and 80 elemental mastery. So it's basically almost doubled in everything, which is heavily appreciated. Just a 10% crit rate, 30% crit damage is going to be heavily appreciated. And that's also going to be one of those things that's going to make him a decent support even for normal Geo DPSs. Now back to our question, which is he going to be a good Geo support in general, or is he going to be bad as a general support like most people say? Honestly, if we look at his kit in terms of just like support to normal Geos, we're going to see that it does provide a lot of things actually. First of all, the additive damage bonus, even to the normal Geo damage, is going to be heavily appreciated. It's basically the same type of damage bonus that Yunjin is going to provide. Unfortunately, when we compare them, Yunjin is going to give much more damage that way. If we say he has like 1,000 elemental mastery and you have a level 10 passive, it's probably going to be giving you like 600 damage extra per hit. With a Yunjin build, let's say she has like 2,500 defense and a level 10 talent too, she's gonna be giving you more like 1,700 extra damage. So obviously Yunjin is just gonna provide more damage in that regard, but he does still provide something. He also does provide the defense buff. He's gonna give you 200 defense, but if we take another character, say for example Goru, he's probably gonna provide more like 400 defense or even more to your characters like C6 Goru. He does provide the crit damage and crit rate to your party members. They can give up to 30% crit damage and 10% crit rate. Goro can give more like 40% extra crit damage for Geo attacks, and which I would say is around the same here. So yeah, straight up, if you're using like just a conventional Geo main DPS and you need like a Geo support and you can only choose one, obviously Illuga is usually not going to be the best character. Because if you need damage bonus, Yunjin is probably going to be better. If you need a defense increase, Goro is probably going to be better, and so on. But the thing is, for lunar crystallized characters, obviously Illuga wins that pretty clearly because he's just going to be providing you like 4k extra damage. So obviously he's the only winner in that regard, and nobody can replace him pretty much. So for a niche character like that who's just going to buff your lunar crystallized damage by a lot, honestly I do think it's fair that he's not going to be super good also as like a general Geo support, especially also considering that he's just a 4-star. So yeah, I would say his value is more of like mostly just a lunar crystallized buffer, but you can definitely also use him as just like a general Geo buffer. He's not going to be the best, but it's definitely going to work and it's going to be fine. For his general value, I wouldn't say he's like one of those 4-stars that are just going to be up the roof in value like some of the recent ones we've seen recently, like Lansam for example, or Bennett, or I don't know, those characters. But I'd say he's like an A-tier character honestly, because he does provide some general Geo supports if you have like some Geo characters in your account in general and stuff like that, and he's still the best in his niche, which is just the lunar crystallized damage. So yeah, in general as a character, I'd put him at like A-tier honestly. I don't think he's as bad outside of lunar teams as people make him out to be, genuinely. It's also pretty easy and cheap to build and to play. So if you want to build them, you just basically need some elemental mastery, maybe energy recharge, and defense. So for your weapons, you can probably go for something pretty easy, like the Dragon's Bane, for example, or the Kid and Cross Spear, or the Moon Piercer. Any elemental mastery weapon can work pretty fine, which is going to be, you know, decent. You can also go for just the energy weapons. If you want to use them as like a pure support, you can use the Favonius on him, which is going to be pretty good. You can use the Prototype. Any weapon like that that can give you elemental mastery, energy recharge is going to be pretty good. For artifacts, is also going to be pretty straightforward. For your artifact set, if you're using them in a lunar team, you'd probably just want to use the Silken Moon set. It's just going to be providing your team with that extra lunar reaction damage, which is heavily appreciated in these teams. It's also going to be giving you some energy recharge for yourself, so it's definitely heavily appreciated. But if you're planning to use them outside of those teams, you can play them with more versatile sets, for example the Gilded Dreams, if you want to get that extra energy recharge or elemental mastery, Emblem of Severed Fate for example, or any mix of two pieces or whatever. But usually if you want to play them in a lunar crystallized team, then you should probably just go with the Silken's Moon. For your main stats, it's also going to be pretty simple. You just want to go full elemental mastery or an energy recharge stance if you're lacking energy. And for the substats, it's basically the same thing. You just want to get the elemental mastery, energy recharge, and maybe some defense if you can. And that's pretty much it. You don't need to build crit or anything like that. It's a very simple character to build. For the final stats you'd want to have on him, you probably just need like more of 1,000 elemental mastery, honestly. That's like the main goal in my opinion, because most of his buffs are just going to scale with elemental mastery, like the extra damage buffs. So elemental mastery is going to be heavily appreciated. I don't think you should go below 1,000 or like 900 minimum. Energy recharge can be an issue too, so you probably want like 150 to 180 energy recharge to make sure you're bursting on uptime. Now for his teams, obviously his basic best teams are just going to be lunar crystallized teams, which are obviously the best contender for that is just going to be Zibai. So you just want to play him in any Zibai team basically. You just want Zibai and then Columbina or any Hydro. You'd want another Geo with Zibai probably, preferably a Geo who can put a construct on the field, which is better for Illuga, like Zhongli for example, Shiori or whatever, and then you can play Illuga and it's just going to be able to buff all of the lunar crystallized damage in the team and also buff the Geo damage a little bit for the second Geo and provide that extra crit rate and crit damage, which is heavily appreciated. So this is like his main sort of team. You can play him in any lunar crystallized team. This is probably just going to be your second best option. So you're going to need Columbina for this obviously, so it's just going to be enabling that lunar crystallized, and then you can use any other Geo main DPS, for example Noelle. So you can play like Noelle, Columbina, and then let's say Illuga and somebali like Goro or Zhongli or whatever. Also going to be a super good team, and Illuga is just going to be buffing those lunar crystallized reactions in this team. So any lunar crystallized teams that's enabled by Columbina, Illuga is probably going to have pretty good value in this type of team. And then finally, as I said before, you can also play him just as a normal Geo support. He's not going to be the best at that, that's for sure. I mean, there are definitely better supports like Goro for example, or Yunjin or whatever. But if you want to, you could play him in just like normal Geo teams. So you can play him in like an Ito team, and let's say you have Ito, Goru, and then Illuga, and then Zhongli, for example. That's a full Geo team, and obviously Illuga's main strengths are just gonna be completely wasted, which is buffing the lunar crystallized reactions. But if you just need like a filler support, then that's definitely gonna be fine. Especially if you have Constellations on him, it's definitely gonna be fine. So it can give you some defense, some considerable crit rate and crit damage, which is, you know, appreciated. It's not bad. And also some extra damage bonus. But yeah, obviously it's not gonna be the best fit for this team, but it's definitely gonna be usable. His best use case is obviously just gonna be lunar crystallized teams. Tell me what do you guys think about Illuga? Are you gonna build him? What teams are gonna be using them in? Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.